Well, as President Biden stated, wanting to deploy the full resources of the federal government to ensure that we could support the communities in Baltimore and surrounding counties and surrounding states as we deal with the economic impact of the Francis Scott Key Bridge collapse. Clearly, first and foremost, our heartfelt condolences and grief for those families who have lost loved ones, and that's the priority. And as we look forward to recovery and economic impact support for small businesses, we are here on the ground in Baltimore with partners at the local level, as well as our congressional delegation, to meet with small businesses directly who have been impacted by the collapse of the bridge, the closure of the port. These are businesses in transportation, logistics, supply chain, as well as those representing businesses who are just finding the ripple effect from the economic impact disrupting their businesses. So it's been a pleasure to join folks to understand and hear some of the real stories on the ground of businesses and what they're doing to try to adapt and survive during this time.
All right, we're going to open it up for Q&A. If you have a question for a specific principal, please identify who you're asking the question to and identify yourselves as well, please. We'll start with WMAR.
Yes, could you explain how a lot of people sitting at home will hear loans, and albeit that they're at a lower rate, they'll be thinking, well, they still have to pay those back. If you could just explain how those loans could make a difference.
Yes. SBA has the authority to provide financial relief to small businesses through this disaster loan product. It's an economic injury disaster loan where we can work with an individual business to assess what the revenue loss or increased expenses of how they've impacted their business. It's an up to $2 million low-cost long-term loan, which is as low as 4% for businesses, as low as 3.25% for nonprofits, and is, of course, over a 30-year period. So making it a more affordable product for businesses to use the funding to pivot and adapt during this time and be able to figure out their strategic plan moving forward. SBA layers that with a very customer-centric approach that the president has called for since day one of his administration, and the SBA has deployed that through allowing for a long-term recovery perspective, knowing that these businesses will need time to recover. We've deferred payments and interest for 12 months with no interest accruing during that 12-month period and no payments required. So in essence, providing cash flow for these businesses to use without that interest accruing so that they can reassess and pivot their business and then be ready for that repayment period. So while this is not a forgivable loan, this is a loan that will be repaid, it is an option for them to be able to deploy that they will not find in the marketplace working directly with the SBA.
And we'll go to WBAL.
What kind of, speaking of small businesses, what kind of issues are you finding are common? What kind of challenges are they facing as a result of this disaster?
There's a full range, right? There are businesses from sole proprietors to small employer firms who were dependent 100% on the business from the port. And so clearly their impact is quite different than maybe perhaps those businesses that relied on the bridge to receive their customers to and from the different neighborhoods across the Francis Scott Key, and that ripple effect that has to all businesses. Not only that, obviously there's businesses that relied on the employees of the port to come into their stores, into their restaurants, et cetera, with money in their pockets to spend. So it's a full range of impact in our businesses, but clearly there's heightened concern, uncertainty with whether or not how they can sustain this closure at the port, and whether or not pivoting to other port work or other types of jobs is even feasible for their business. So that's why the SBA has layered in a comprehensive network of supporters to help these businesses when they come in, not just to talk to them about the disaster loan product, but how we can leverage our resources to help them find opportunities, work with the city, work with the county, work with the state, as well as our free network of advisors to help their business strategically adapt during this time.
Go to WJZ next.
I have the same question, but for Johnny and Scott.
Yes.
Thank you. What you heard from the administrator is exactly right. We're talking about businesses mainly really, really small and single proprietor businesses that depend on the port. And the question that they have is they want to know how we can help them, how we can help them through this time where they simply don't have business. And it's heartbreaking to hear, and everyone understands that we're going through this unthinkable tragedy. But that's why it's so important for all of us to be here. So important for the administrator and our congressional delegation and the federal government at the behest of the president to step up the way they did. And as the county executive, I always say, for us at local government to help fill in the gaps and have that partnership. This is why we announced yesterday that first $1.5 million towards wage subsidy for small businesses in the city impacted by the port, so that we can help in the meantime, help those folks keep on some of their workers, keep their folks. And while we're exploring everything that we possibly can, even if we can temporarily take some of their workers who may have CDL and other things and have them do work for us as we work through all of that to see how we can help our small businesses and everybody in our community survive through this most trying time.
Just to add, again, I'll thank the administrator and our congressional delegation for their steadfast leadership and for your presence today. I think it speaks to the coordination that we're seeing. Similarly, in addition to this site here, we want to thank Care First for hosting us here with this SBA site. Working with Dylan Goldberg and the governor's office as well, we will be opening a more permanent site tomorrow at the Community College of Baltimore County, in Baltimore County. So we'll be having two sites just like this, but as the mayor said, as the administrator said, everything from a sole proprietor to a larger size business, these impacts are rippling all over our region, and frankly, as far north as Pennsylvania, probably down into West Virginia. We will do whatever it takes to make sure that we are helping folks find their way through, whether that means direct support for housing, for food, for income supplement, through loans, through grants. We're looking at all sorts of options. The philanthropic community is stepping up. The private sector is stepping up. Our federal leaders, from the president through our congressional delegation, the governor, and of course locally, we're going to do whatever it takes. And we will be nimble. We will be smart. I've seen coordination unlike ever before in this past week. And we've been through a lot, the mayor and I, but this has been really an unprecedented level of coordination and cooperation. So we're very fortunate, and I feel very confident that we'll be okay given that level of effort together. So thanks.
Thank you. I think we have Fox next.
How busy have these sites been? Can you give us just sort of a personal feel? Where are you hearing from these businesses?
You know, as a business owner myself, and recognizing that you put your heart and soul into starting this business, oftentimes small businesses are not able to access capital to start their business, so they've put their own personal savings in, credit cards, etc. You know, you feel their passion and their commitment to maintain their workforce, and it becomes a family when you run a business. And so clearly, that is something that we're paying attention to at the SBA. We know the challenges businesses are facing. We've seen strong demand for our for our economic injury disaster loan program at the SBA. We've had over 500 applications finalized. Our business recovery centers, which we have 2 open to date, and it will be doubling that in the coming days, have seen a steady flow of individuals coming in, everything from sole proprietors to employer-based businesses, really trying to understand what's available, what additional assistance the SBA can provide through strategic advice and support as their businesses navigate these challenges. And so we've seen an incredible spike thanks to the increased awareness that this product is available. We opened our business recovery center on Monday and are really seeing that application flow spiking. And businesses can go directly to the SBA at sba.gov to get assistance. We have a new unified lending platform that we've deployed in the Biden-Harris administration that offers a streamlined experience, or come in directly to our business recovery centers.
Do we have the sun here, Daniel? Oh, there you go.
Administrator Guzman, could you explain for us, walk us through a little bit from the application process to when business owners see that money in their accounts, what that process looks like?
As many people know, SBA deploys in disasters for both physical damage as well as economic injury. In the case of the Francis Scott Key Bridge collapse, this is just for economic injury. That process is a little bit longer as we're working with the businesses to understand what their impact is on revenues, on expenses. We are underwriting this, and so from the time of application we process, it's a couple of weeks before they'll actually see a disbursement, up to a couple weeks for actual disbursement, depending on, whether they have their taxes ready, if we're deploying and trying to get taxes for them, et cetera. So this is an underwritten loan, but we're, having a high touch, in person, on the ground approach to help businesses walk through that application process as quickly as possible.
Hi, I just wanted to ask, I know you said you have about 500 applications in right now. Do you have any idea how much in total you might see in terms of applications?
We have over 500 applications. I don't have any further information at this time as we collect data and try to see exactly what those realistic requests are in each application.
Banner?
Yeah, do you have any idea what industries or like what kind of fields of work that you are applying for systems?
We're seeing heavy demand from those industries that relied heavily on the port. So obviously the more, transportation and logistics, those folks who 100% of their business was in making sure that the port could operate. So that's the main thrust right now. I will also say that it is regional. As soon as we worked with Governor Wes Moore to deploy the disaster in the state of Maryland, it also applied to contiguous counties in other states, Pennsylvania, Delaware, Virginia, West Virginia, as well as DC, and we are seeing applicants from every single one of those areas.
Senator Cardin, if I may, there's some reporting emerging that the Maryland delegation will be meeting with the Biden administration on Tuesday to talk about emergency funding, but that the Maryland delegation is fracturing a bit over what should be paid for. Republicans want to focus funding only on cleanup. Democrats obviously want money for the bridge reconstruction, and I understand there's some disagreement over a desire to have that guaranteed regardless of the outcome of the November election. Can you talk about some of that?
There's been absolutely no delay whatsoever in federal resources or federal personnel to deal not just with the cleanup and the reopening of the channel, but also the planning for the first phases of the replacement bridge. That's already in process, already being worked, already funded. So there is no funding issue at this particular moment. We are meeting with the OMB director in the state of Maryland on Tuesday. Our delegation will meet in order to make sure we're coordinated between Congress and the White House to make sure that those resources continue. So there are already pots of dollars available that have been made that for both the channel opening and the bridge replacement. And I will differ with you. I think we're going to have strong bipartisan support. This is a catastrophic event to an infrastructure that affects our nation. And I heard what Senator McConnell said, the Republican leader in the Senate, that the federal government will be there. So we're confident that we will continue to have the support necessary to make sure the resources are there to complete the mission.
And the same thing, no, I just want to make sure that we understand that just as Senator Cardin talked about what's happening in the Senate, the same thing holds true for the House. Are there a couple of loud people with loud voices? Yes. But I've spoken directly with the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson. I've talked with Rosa DeLauro, who is the ranking member of the Appropriations Committee, and Tom Cole, the leading Republican on that committee. They are all on board. And I think what you're going to see when we reconvene on Tuesday is a Congress that will still have some of those unusually loud voices, but by and large, this will be a bipartisan effort because this is a national supply chain, obviously, that's being interrupted here, and because the goods and services that Americans need are not just here in the Mid-Atlantic, they're all over the country. So I've not seen anything other than a real ideal way to coalesce around this, and the coalescing has been not just from the lips of those of us who represent the area, but as you know, from people and members of the House and the Senate who recognize the importance of getting this done.
And Senator, if I can ask a quick, somewhat unrelated follow-up question. Several of your colleagues in the Senate have now come out about conditioning further aid to Israel because of what happened with the World Central Kitchen. You have been an opponent of conditioning aid. Does that attack change your feelings on the matter?
I think we'll talk about that at a different time. I think we want to concentrate on the bridge and on the impact it has on our businesses. This port is critically important to our economy. There's 1 million containers that go through the Port of Baltimore every year. They have to be moved. Most of that is moved by small independent truckers that are now out of business. They're desperate, and we want to make sure they get all the help that they need, not only from the SBA, but one of the things we want to do is coordinate that with other available resources at the local level, at the state level, and at the federal level. So today we heard their concerns, and they're desperate, and we need to do everything we can so they can remain in business until we can get the port fully operating.
Thank you, sir.
Leah with the sun here. Any questions? Any outlets that we missed?
I'm an AV.
Oh, great. Please go ahead.
Just wondering, you mentioned 500 applications. Do you have any idea when people might start seeing loans if they are accepted?
As I mentioned, these are economic injury disaster loans. SBA has rolled out under the Biden-Harris administration a simplified process so that we get physical disaster loans out within sometimes as short as 48 hours. On economic injury, it's a little bit more complex in assessing the revenue impacts, the expense impacts. And so we anticipate these applications have been coming in since Monday. It's about 2 weeks before they actually get dispersed dollars on their accounts. And again, just emphasizing that after disbursement, these businesses will have 12 months to be able to use this capital to be able to pivot without interest accruing, without payments due for a full year.
And people can apply
People can, the businesses, both for-profit and nonprofit, can apply for up to $2 million of economic injury. And it is a 30-year term loan that businesses will have that automatic flexibility of 1 year for.
any about 2 years ago.
They have through the end of 2024, businesses are able to apply, and SBA knows that this is a long-term recovery, and so we will be flexible even at the tail end of that.
Any other comments or remarks from any of you?
Well, I just want to say that both the mayor, who is here with us, and the county executive have demonstrated a great example of teamwork on a local level by coordinating their efforts. We've all been sort of led through this and with it through Governor Moore's effort. And I know that Senator Cardin, myself, Chris Van Hollen, the congressional team have been honored to work with them and honored at the way they've gone about taking this task. We still have, and like it's always important to raise the point, bodies that have yet been uncovered and families that are still grieving, but I don't think you could ask for a better effort. The ones that they've displayed and the ones that we've tried to display as a national model here in Maryland about how to deal with and get through a disaster.
All right, thank you to the Biden administration for everything you're doing, and thank you for being here today. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.